Are you okay? You're live.
I'm frozen.
Oh yeah, you're live. So just go for it and see if it unfreezes, and then we can always go to a commercial break. All right?
All right, so hello, and welcome. Super excited to be here with you today. Happy winter solstice. Happy, oh my God, Capricorn season. And let's not forget the amazing 1221 energy we have going, this portal that we have going on today. So excited to be here with you all today. Hopefully, at some point, well, obviously, somewhere along the line, you can see me. I just can't see myself. How interesting is that right now? That is so darn funny. Anyway, so how is everybody doing? I think I said that. Take a moment to share today's show as I just did as well. And give me a second, just trying to hold up my. Give me a moment. I'm going to stand up. Why not let internet just make me a little crazy, right? Yes. I look like I'm looking all over the place. Anyway, welcome. Share out today's show. You just saw me standing up. Yes, you did. So before we dive into today's show, I want to give a shout out to all of my amazing partners that do make this show work week after week after week. We're going to start off, and there is a flyer with this, or some animated flyer for that matter. We have Joe Monkman. He's our personal development trainer and wellness advocate. Then we also have CJI Lopez, who's the host and publisher of the Author's Porch podcast and magazine. Deborah Beatty, the badass color mystic. Kitty Foss, she is a storyteller of astrology, reader of the stars. And last but not least, Tammy Moses. She's the podcast host and the founder of The Hoarding Solution. So there you have it. Hopefully you caught the last show, the last episode, which took place on December 7th. There's no flyer on this one. The show was called 123 Abundance and Harmony. And obviously I was the guest of the show. And if you did not get a chance to see that show live, know that you could definitely go and watch it on all the major platforms, just to name a few: Amazon Fire TV, Twitch TV, Roku, and of course here on Facebook and YouTube. So, how is everyone doing? Want to dive off in this energy that we do have. After all, I did say that I started off with this whole process of what we are doing. Interesting though, did I even mention who I am? I probably didn't, because sometimes I get a little confused and a little overwhelmed. So in case you're watching for the very first time, I want to welcome you to Joanne's Healing Within. I'm your host, Joanne Angel Barry Cologne. You're a holistic integrative teacher, Reiki master, card creator, card reader, and certified licensed holistic personal trainer. Super excited to be here with you today. The list goes on and on and on regarding my bio, but that's just the gist of it for today. Let's not forget these amazing cards that I do my readings with every single day and provide guidance for you, not only to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not only for entertainment purposes, because theoretically that's like the bylaws that most readers say. Mine are actually to help you gain some insight, tap into a chakra, learn an affirmation, and play around with your astrology and numerology all at the same time to help you navigate through what's going on. And considering the energy that we do have going on right now with, again, today, the winter solstice, it is what we call the shortest day of sunlight and the longest night of darkness. And then we also have Capricorn season. So all of you who are celebrating Capricorn birthdays, happy birthday, early birthday to all of you. And then the mirror, 1221. Why is it a mirror? Well, if you wrote those numbers down, 1221, and turned those papers facing each other, those two numbers are going to mirror each other. And that's just a symbol of the relationships that we do have with one another, how our relationships reflect who we are. So if there's anything about anyone that you may not be liking so much, well, that's a reflection of yourself. So take some time to do some healing work with that. Anyway. So what I like to do is I'm going to pull a card and see what we have in store for today. All right, our card for today Quite interesting of the card that shows up. It's in reverse. Reverse cards, in case you are new to watching any of the shows, a card that shows up in reverse, it's an indication of two things. You want to pay attention to that color. That color is associated with the crown in this particular case. So you want to pay attention to that. Your crown is about your higher wisdom, your higher knowing, your psychic abilities. It's also a really great way of learning how to balance between the ego, the logic, and also your wisdom. So let's turn it in the upright position. The second reason why the card is in reverse is there's a possibility that you may have a little resistance to the message that I'm about to deliver. So here we go. Forgiveness is the message. Who do you need to work on forgiving? And remember, as I mentioned, today's energy is that 1221 energy, which is the reflection. So to start off with, before you forgive anybody, start forgiving yourself. Give yourself permission, grace, ease, and unconditional love today on whatever it is you feel that you might have done wrong, or you're feeling that someone else did wrong. I've said this millions of times to people. There is no rule book to when it comes to relationships. Whatever your title is, whether you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a sister, you're a brother, you're a friend, whatever it is, there's no rule book. So all of us with these, well, they should be doing it this way. Reality of it all is there isn't a rule book. It goes the way it goes, and whatever it is that you're learning from it is what you're learning from it. That 9-9 energy, that 9 is a reminder that there's something you need to let go of, and the letting go means letting go of the grudge that we hold on to. So many of us hold on to grudges, and if you really want to ask that person, well, why are you upset with me, or why am I upset with you? Probably don't even know why. You're just holding on to a grudge because it's easier to do that than to move into a space of love. The double 9s works out to be 9 again. So let's talk about that energy just for a hot minute. That 9-9 energy is the energy that Mercury will be tapping into, which is Sagittarius, on December 23rd, when Mercury backspins into Sagittarius energy. And I just want to take a look at something before I dive further into that. Give me 1 second just to check my notes on something. I want to make sure that I have the actual date correct, because there's so much that goes on. Yes, Mercury backspins on December 23rd. Mercury backspins into Sagittarius. I'm just double checking again, because that's really important information that we want to know about. And why is that important? Once Mercury backspins into Sagittarius, it's really going to be about your higher learning, your higher wisdom, and your higher consciousness. And that's where forgiveness comes into play. Right now, Mercury is in Capricorn, sitting right alongside the Sun. The Sun will be entering Capricorn this evening at about 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't quote me on the time exactly, but it's definitely after 5 o'clock. So for right now, the Sun is still very much sitting in oh my goodness gracious, our Sagittarius energy. So that holds true right there. And we think about this all back and forth. Anyway, all that being said, take a breath. Just take a breath for a moment. And allow yourself to exhale the breath. And as you exhale the breath, I'm going to just say hello to everybody who is watching. If you have not shared out the show yet, please do share out the show. Let everybody know that we are here. And with that being said, I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and I'm going to come back. And when I do come back, I'm going to be coming back and introducing you to my guest for the day. So I'll be right back. Hello and welcome. I'm Joanne Angel Barry Cologne, your holistic integrative teacher, licensed personal trainer, Reiki master, published author, and card creator. Let me take you down a path of direct communication with the physical body in order to become more aware and in sync with your soul. I will help you to observe and understand the language of the body as it regards to the needs of the soul. Join me on this journey of great expansion and a unique experience. I will help you integrate your mind, body, and soul as you move forward on your journey. For questions
readings, and self-growth discovery session, email healingwithin76@gmail.com.
Hello, 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 and welcome back. Welcome back to Joanne's Healing Within. For those of you just tuning in, I'm your host, Joanne Dubarry Cologne. I'm super excited to be here with you today. If you missed the first part of this episode, the introduction, so to speak, please know you can go back and watch on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Twitch TV, of course, here on Facebook, and YouTube. And let's not forget Twitter. Yes. So I do want to bring back the card because I always like to bring the card back to the conversation. Our card for today showed up in reverse. A reverse card just means we need to work on the chakra, which is the crown. And it's also about maybe a little resistance regarding the message that I have given. Now, I can never recite the message again because the message is always channeled. So whatever shows up now is new information. However, I did take a little bit of notes. That 9 energy, when we talk about the energy we're in right now, the sun right now sits in Sagittarius. By 5-something this evening, the sun is going to be entering the Capricorn. That 9 energy is a reminder that it's time to let go of your grudge. Let go of the grudge so you can move into that space of ease, grace, unconditional love, and peace and joy in your heart. Remember that purple energy is the crown. This is about higher wisdom. And after all, we are in the winter solstice, so this is a perfect time to really work on pulling into ease, pulling into grace, pulling into joy. So that is our card for today. I want to bring in my guest, bringing in Tammy Moses. She is amazing. She is, again, our powerful podcast host and founder of The Reporting Solution. So let's bring her on the camera so we can all see her and get to know her. Today's title is Bring Ease and Grace into emergency visit. It's actually supposed to be the emergency room, but everything's been a little flip-flop with Mercury going retrograde. Hello there, Tammy. How are you, my love?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Behind the scenes, I'm sitting here saying, well, what the hell is going on here with Mercury retrograde? It's quite an interesting day, I have to say. Are you feeling this energy today between Mercury retrograde, the winter solstice, the sun getting ready to enter into Capricorn, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, plays a big role for you since you happen to have Capricorn sun energy?
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So are you feeling all of this?
There seems to be like this movement, right? Like there's just this, it's not necessarily chaotic to me, but I just feel the movement, the shifting of things. I mean, even simple things like we decided not to put up a Christmas tree, which is like for me, but given our space, and I said, okay, well, I have a pseudo Christmas tree that I can use that has some branches and red, like it's good. It'll be fine. Right. But for me, that's just like this shock that I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
But in other things too, like I really thought I had this gift that was going to be here for my boyfriend, and it's not. And I'm like, like, I just feel like these things that I would normally, I mean, it's annoying, but normally I would freak out. And I'm like, okay, well, I just like, I have to pivot again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really what this energy is. It's teaching us, especially with Mercury in retrograde. By the way, in Capricorn, there's a lot of Capricorn going on right now. So with all that energy, it is a moment of taking time to pause, to practice patience is what I hear. Practicing patience. And this is going to be a great segue right into our conversation today, considering our topic is about bringing ease and grace into, I put the emergency visit, but into the emergency room. Now, a little backstory for with Tammy and I, about maybe 2 weeks ago, she and I were chatting about her emergency visit that she had and her experience there. And I had shared with Tammy my experience that I had a couple of months ago with my dad in the emergency room, and how it's just really interesting that they do not have, and when I say they, the emergency room, the doctors, the nurses, whoever sets up the space, they do not have space for the caretaker that comes in with the person who's going into the emergency visit. So Tammy and I started chatting about that, and that's how this particular show came about. So Tammy, talk a little bit about your experience that you had, and then we'll talk about like some how we can bring that ease and grace into these visits.
Well, of course, by nature, an ER visit isn't planned, right? And so I ended up taking my mom there because the entire computer system of that facility was down. And so the original appointment couldn't happen. And because she had fallen a couple days before, I was concerned that we really needed to be seen since she had agreed to be there with me, which is not, it's depending on what your connection is with your loved one. You may or may not get agreement sometimes for the things that you need for their benefit.
They may not even be in agreement to go to an emergency room.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's a matter of having that tug of war and saying, well, you have to go, and they'll fight with you, and then, you know, now the two of you end up in the emergency room together. That person doesn't really want to be there, and you're trying to make it comfortable enough for that person to be there. So sorry, I cut right into that conversation.
But that's the whole thing, is like you finally get agreement sometimes, and then you're there, and now it can't happen because a computer system is not working. And so we ended up, they have their little wheelchairs, right? So I end up pushing her across the parking lot over there, and then we proceeded to, they triage you pretty quickly, but then you're sitting and you're waiting and you don't know, and it's already a difficult scenario, but then you throw in not having computer systems working and everything slows down, and the staff is doing everything they can to let you know what's happening, you know. But anyway, we ended up being in that waiting area for about 13 hours because of all the things that were going on, and more people just kept coming in, and you're like, where, like, is this the place to be on a Friday night?
Probably not.
But, and so the triage piece went well, but now you're sitting there and you're waiting, and it's not a comfortable space, right? It's just it can be a frustrating scenario. And fortunately, of course, they have some wheelchairs and things, so someone could kick their leg up if they're having swelling, which is what we were dealing with. But as far as sitting, it's like you're sitting for, if you were sitting for 10 minutes in a doctor's office, that'd be fine. You're seating. But when you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and more people are coming in and they're tired, and then there's kids that probably would benefit from laying down somewhere, and basically the small ER area kind of expanded out into the main lobby, which you'd normally walk into on a given normal business day. So to me, it just was astounding to me how many people came in and had to wait, but it was a very uncomfortable situation, you know. And I just feel like there's a disconnect between what people need and what's being offered. And I know you and I have talked about this as well, the disconnect between physical health and mental health, and how that connection is often missed. And I do see where they were trying, like with a patient advocate, they were, you know, but finally it was like, okay, we've been here for like 5 hours, and I need to know, can she eat some food? Because, you know, and we do before the cafeteria closes, and we don't know what the testing is going to be. And there was a lot of people in that holding pattern, if you will, waiting for a test result. And again, with the computer system being down, that was part of the issue. But people were getting irritated, but for the most part, people were pretty calm and pretty patient and understanding of what was going on. But like, I get hangry, right? That's a real thing. And,
Yes.
and normally I'd like to think I'm a little more prepared, right? Like, I'd have a bottle of water, I'd have a granola bar, whatever, but I didn't anticipate the length of time that we would be there. And part of the reason for sticking it out is, again, we had agreement that we would go over there and do this. But for the elderly folks that have a fall risk, that's a real thing. And you wanted to know if there was a break or a fracture or if there was something going on. And so that was part of the incentive for holding out and waiting to see what would happen. And then we did get to the point where it's like, maybe we should just go because it's been so long. And but then you run the risk of leaving against medical advice, right? So we didn't want to do that either. Well, let me rephrase that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because if that were to be the case when you chose to want to leave, it's quite interesting on how a nurse will come over to you at that point and say, well, if you choose to leave, you're leaving against medical rights, for that matter. But yet they're not there for you if you're asking about, well, can my family member have something to eat? Can they drink something? Can they get a blanket? So it's really interesting on when they show up. When you're looking to leave, they're right away saying, oh no, if you're gonna walk away, that's not a good idea to do just that. It was so interesting because when you had said that about going to the emergency room on a Friday, it's not really the best time to go to emergency room. I remember this expression from a while back. There's two places you never really want to go to on a Friday or a Saturday. And those two places are the emergency room, and this is the joke of it all, and to get arrested.
Well, because you're looking at weekend stay, most likely.
Exactly, because theoretically, going to emergency room on the weekend, if you are going to be admitted, most of your specialists are not there on the weekend. They don't come in until Monday. So therefore, any type of major results that you do need, you're going to end up waiting just because they don't have the right practitioners on staff, that because of the fact that it's a Friday or Saturday. So it's like, okay, so should we really go to the emergency room on a Friday or Saturday, or can this be something that may be able to wait until Monday when we know the right practitioners are there? It's the same thing with being arrested. Get arrested on a Friday and Saturday, you're definitely going to be there until Monday because that's just how it is. So just a little humor out there, people.
And you have to kind of look for it, right? You have to look for some kind of relief of whatever's going on so that you can retain your sanity while you're going through something stressful. And it's even in that situation, you're having to navigate some level of self-care, right? For you as the person coming in there with someone, and you don't really want to leave them alone, right? Like, that's a scary thing too, to well, here, I'm going to just drop you off,
Yes. Could you imagine what it's like back, when we think about 3 years ago with the pandemic? I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday that, during the pandemic, I don't know about where you are, but by me, if someone was going to the hospital, whether it was emergency or actually being admitted, where it was a scheduled visit, family members were not allowed to go in. So we were literally leaving them at the door with a nurse, wheeling them in and basically staying in contact with them through phone because we weren't allowed in. Now, when we are actually allowed in, which is what Tammy's speaking about now, just the whole process of, like, I know for me, when I've had to take my dad to the emergency room, and like you said, emergency events are not planned. They're not planned. That's why they're called emergencies. And I know when I get that call to say, something happened to dad, it's like, okay, I grab like the long sleeve shirts because 90% of the time the hospitals are cold. They're very rarely warm. So I grab a long sleeve shirt, I grab like water, and I grab a snack because theoretically we all know that going into an emergency room is not going to be a in and out visit. So when you were taking your mom to the emergency room due to her fall, did you like take anything with you to sort of prepare yourself? What was your experience like?
So I haven't spent a lot of time in an ER, right? As an adult, I could count how many times I've been involved for some reason. And I had stuff in my car, but I didn't stop at my car, right? So I just went across the aisle, up across the parking lot. We checked in, we did but I had my purse, but I had nothing. Like, I didn't have a granola bar. I didn't bring a bottle of water. And I just wasn't ready for the length of time, and it kind of caught me off guard because I didn't even really have like pen and paper. Like, I could write stuff, right? But because of the heightened awareness I had of we were probably going to be here a while, it's like all that normal things I would plan or do or say, hey, I'm going to run to my car real quick. I didn't do it. In fact, the next morning after we had been there for quite some time, I realized I haven't brushed my teeth like since yesterday morning. And here it is at 10 o'clock the next day. And I'm like, maybe I should have asked for some toothpaste, or something,
Or a piece of gum, something just to freshen the moment.
And I finally discovered, I do have a piece of gum. So I did that. But and I kind of going back to the food thing, it's like you're sitting there and you're waiting. Some people had people that would go get them food and bring it back. But I was like, hey, I'd like to get to the cafeteria before they close. And I was able to get her some hot soup and something to drink and like a cookie and whatever. And, she had no restrictions on what she could eat. But it was like, we need to take care of this before that closes. Otherwise, what? The vending machine with like soda and chips and okay, I'm not saying I don't eat that stuff. I do, but that's not a meal, and that's not a great thing if you're already like having you already have an injury, you're already not feeling great. Like, let's have something hot or something. And again, I can't fault the providers. They were doing everything they could. It's just there was the perfect storm of an ER, that the computer systems aren't working. I couldn't reach my boyfriend because people's phones were down because someone apparently cut a cable doing some construction. So it was like this perfect storm of like, what vortex did I step into inadvertently? And I wasn't prepared,
Exactly. And not even that. I mean, for your situation, the wires were down, but for some emergency places, in which I've been in, sometimes the cell phone's reception doesn't work out in the emergency room. So you literally, to call someone to update the person of what's going on, you literally have to step away from the person you're there with just to go update a family member and say, okay, I'll be right back, and hope that during the time you step away that a doctor or a nurse doesn't come to chat with the patient, because then you miss out on everything they chatted about. So it's like this catch-22.
And that did happen. That happened too.
Yes. And what we're going to do is we're going to chat about that after we take a commercial break. But before we do, Tammy, just let everyone know how they can reach you. Your website, there's a flyer with all that information on there as well.
So you can reach me at thehoardingsolution.com. And I also have a group on Facebook, the Hoarding Solution Community, where people are welcome to join. And we have authentic sharing in that group, meaning we do show some graphic photos and things like that. So happy to connect with people.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have more on this topic because it is an interesting topic. At some point, Tammy and I will be sharing some tips of how to make your ER trip a little more easy and graceful. So we'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kitty Foss.
And I'm Amy J.
And we're Intuition of the Soul. We are a Facebook and YouTube group that has created a sacred spiritual place to look at your spiritual practices.
And there's too much to tell you about what we do, but let me tell you, we have weekly activities, we have monthly activities, and you are not going to want to miss our spiritual practitioner series. So join us on Intuition of the Soul.
Aloha.
Hey, this is Joe Monkman, and I am a personal development trainer. And that means that I help people step into their leadership roles, take their place as a visionary, really understand their own mastery in the world so that they can really find their place at the buffet of life. And if you want to know more, you can find me on my Facebook page at Joe Monkman and joemonkman@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome back to Joanne's Healing Within. I'm your host, Joanne Angel Barry Cologne, and today I am chatting with Tammy Moses, who's going to be popping in. We are chatting about, the title is Bring Ease and Grace into an Emergency Visit or the Emergency Room, which is what it should have read. So anyway, we were just chatting about the fact of that if you are in an emergency room situation and you have to update a family member regarding to whatever's going on, and in Tammy's case, the electricity, the wire went down. In my case, the internet, not the internet, the connection wasn't working out so well. So I had to step out, which then left my dad alone, unassisted. And Tammy ended up, what did you end up having to do?
So I had to use the restroom. And so I went and I did that, and I came back, and as soon as I did, my mom's like, well, they were just here and they talked to me. And so she let me know what was said. It wasn't anything, urgent or particular about it. Was more like, hey, we're just waiting. Would you like a blanket? That type of thing. But it's like, it's uncanny to me sometimes how the minute you step away or the minute you do something, like now that they appear, it's just
yes. It's like exactly. It's like the minute you go, it's like now somebody comes by to assist or whatever. Not. It's quite an interesting experience. I know for me, when my dad was in the emergency, they had no seats for the caretaker. So for me, I literally, thank goodness I'm small and so is my dad, I chose to sit in the bed with my dad because we were there for about 6 hours just in the emergency room, not knowing when we were going to be admitted, because we were told he was being admitted. So we didn't know when the transporter was going to come down to get him. So it was like 6 hours. I'm like, okay, I'm not standing for 6 hours. So I squeezed myself into the bed. But noticing there were no chairs around for anybody. Now, did you have the same situation? I know you mentioned about the wheelchair, your mom being in the wheelchair. What did you do? Did you grab a chair? Did you have to stand? What was your experience like?
So when we actually went from the waiting area into an actual room, they did have a couple of folding chairs tucked away. So I was able to pull out one of those and sit. And even with that, it felt a little awkward. Like I didn't want to be in the way of them coming in and doing all the IVs and all the stuff that they do. And so, but I did have a chair at least. And I don't think the bed thing would have worked given the situation she was having. But yes. I did see like a doctor come in and do exactly what, just perch on the edge of it to talk with her. And it's like they didn't even have one of those little rolling stools like they do it sometimes. So there was that aspect of it. But it still was, I'm not sure you could ever be completely comfortable anyway in that scenario, because you're not sure what's going on. You're tired, they're tired, And sometimes like that preliminary piece is they're still making a decision whether they're going to admit or not. And there's a difference between admitting to admit versus we're going to place you for observation, which also changes what Medicare might potentially cover. So even in your own state of what's going on, you're still like, if you're a decision maker at that point, like you have to be aware of what decisions you're going to be making. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, when you've been awake almost 24 hours, that can be a little rummy. And if you don't have anywhere to sit, like to me, that should be at a minimum. Like there is room for a folding chair in just about any space I've ever been in a hospital. So like to me, there's no excuse to not have a chair of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But again, I don't know if things have changed with the experience of the pandemic 3 years ago, or because I can't remember, what an emergency room setup looked like prior to, if there were chairs or no chairs or whatever the situation is. But anyway, yeah. So bringing more ease and grace. So how would you go about bringing more ease and grace into an emergency room situation?
So I think that because like once you're checked in and you're triaged and you're waiting, I think in my situation, I could have said, hey, I'm going to go to my car because I know I have some bottles of water out there and I probably got a granola bar or something kicking around too. And just taken 10 minutes and done that, right? Like the world would not have fallen apart if I had done that, because like they're trying to do other tests and blood work and things like that. So, I mean, I could have taken that time to do that. The other thing is if I would have brought in my own blanket, like if I'd gone to my car, I would have got a blanket for me, because I felt weird saying, hey, could I have a warm blanket? Like, I don't know. But if I had dragged my own in there.
You're better than me, because at the time that they asked my dad if he needed a blanket, I was like, could you grab 2 of those? Because I want one too.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, I really could have done that, like stepped into that and said, hey, the other thing is, like, I didn't have coffee for a long time. Like in the morning, I could have probably said, hey, is there any chance y'all have something, coffee around? And when I finally did ask, because by that point we were roomed now in the hospital, and they brought me a cup of coffee, and I was like, it's,
Exactly. It is a different experience though in the emergency room, and when they actually bring the patient up to an actual room. Very different experience, because what I was experiencing in the emergency room and then when they took us upstairs was a very different experience. The experience upstairs was, do you need this? Do you need that? Can I get you a chair? There was more of that. Where again, if the practitioners upstairs spoke with the practitioners downstairs, and they sort of brought that in, because I think the emergency situation where bringing a patient in I think is more warrant, because everyone's sort of hysterical. In an emergency situation, everyone's nervous. Yes.
Right. And I sensed a lot of that nervousness, but once you were talking with a nurse or once you were one-on-one, you could tell their compassion. You could tell they were trying to do their jobs and with the limited resources they had at that time. And I do see a lot of compassion there. But something I was thinking about before this, before we started this today, was this is a teaching hospital. So what are we teaching by the way we are interacting with people? And I get that we're a smaller rural area, but we do have folks that are homeless coming in. We do have people that have some kind of drug or alcohol issue, and you could see that. And I mean, it's to the point where you have security out there dealing with some of the people who are They're basically a danger to themselves and anybody else that's sitting around. And so that also exacerbates some of the things. And like, even if someone comes in via an ambulance, they're still triaging that. Like, how serious is it? And if you're sitting there waiting, you will be pushed to the, back a little bit, which I understand that. But I think there's a misconception that if you're brought in by an ambulance, you're going to be seen lickety split. And it really depends on what your situation is. Granted, now you're there, and that's where you should be if you're having this kind of a crisis. But you are not necessarily going to be head of the line, if you aren't having a serious heart attack or stroke or something very serious that they can see right away. So there is a level of patience required, obviously, when you go into these. But I think if you can step back for a minute and say, I am going to get a cup of coffee, I am going to go use the bathroom, I'm going to maybe ask for that warm blanket since I didn't go to my car. Like, I think there's ways that you can make sure you're okay, because frankly, if my brain is floating because I need to go to the bathroom, I'm not at my best to advocate for this person. So
Exactly.
you have to kind of manage that at the same time being like, hey, do you need a blanket? Do you need the bathroom? Should I go ask, for an update? Because at some point you're waiting and you need to know what's going on. But I agree with what you said also. Like, there's an inherent difference between this is the ER and, hey, okay, now we've made I feel like it's like, now we've made a decision and now we know how to proceed. But up to that decision point, it does feel kind of disconnected and chaotic. But you can see the difference if you're dealing with someone that has some level of distress with mental health versus someone who doesn't have that same level of distress, but they're having like a physical issue. And so there's a difference even there in how someone's being assessed and treated, because there's just a difference in how that person is approaching everything. And
yes.
That
And it always strikes me funny, going back into the ER part of it, before they make the decision of whatever it is they're going to do with the patient, is that there are several different what would you call them, titles, I guess. You have maybe the assistant, the practitioner, the RN, whatever their titles are. And anytime you have whatever the practitioner is coming in to see the patient, for whatever the reason are, they always want to take a blood pressure. It's like, it's like, how many times do we need to take a blood pressure for this person that literally just had a blood pressure reading? So again, it's just about taking a look at the charts to see what the patient had already done, and is it necessary to do that again? Because again, the patient gets, I guess, irritated when the same things are being done to them and they don't really have any answers to what is going to take place. What's the next step? No.
And I think it's such an ingrained thing. Like, we're going to check your blood pressure. We're going to draw your blood. We want a urine sample. Like, okay, those are all like pretty standard things. But how many times do you need to do that in, an hour or two? And in general, they'll hook you up to some sort of monitor where they're monitoring that anyway. So it does feel to me sometimes like there's a disconnect between what the standard operating procedure is and what the humans in that situation could benefit from.
Exactly. And what we're going to do, we're going to take another commercial break. However, before we do that, Tammy's going to let you know how you can get a hold of her should you want to find out more about her experiences. And we will come back and give you some tips in reference to how to prepare. Is really the key. How to prepare to have the ease and grace in case you do have an emergency situation, whether it's in a hospital or even any place for that matter, what to have with you so you make the situation more comfortable for both yourself as the caretaker and also the person you are taking care of at that time. So Tammy, let everybody know how they can reach you.
So my website is thehoardingsolution.com, and it's also homesareforliving.com. It goes to the same place, and I have a group, the Hoarding Solution Community, as well on Facebook, and I actually have that on LinkedIn as well. So happy to connect with people.
Excellent. So we're going to take that quick commercial break, and we'll be right back for a little bit more of tips and possibly a reading if Tammy's open to it.
Hi, I'm CJ. The Author's Porch is a community where you find good books and good people. We collaborate with services that deliver quality to authors and publish a magazine for authors by authors. Come by, let us feature you or review your book. Coffee is always on, and no matter what time you arrive or where you come from, the porch light is always on.
Hey, this is Joe Monkman, and I am a personal development trainer. And that means that I help people step into their leadership roles, take their place as a visionary, really understand their own mastery in the world so that they can really find their place at the buffet of life. And if you want to know more, you can find me on my Facebook page at Joe Monkman and joemonkman@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome back to Joanne's Healing Within. If you are just tuning in, I'm your host, Joanne Angel Barry Cologne, and I have been chatting with my guest, Tammy Moses, who's going to pop in right now. Our title and topic has been all about bringing ease and grace into an emergency visit, emergency room, or anything dealing with an emergency. And what we're going to do now is Tammy's going to share and continue sharing, because she's been sharing a lot of tips in reference to how to bring more ease and grace. So Tammy, if you can give us one more tip for anybody who may experience, because we never know. None of us never know when an emergency situation, an emergency visit is going to occur. So what is the one tip you can provide for our audience today that can prepare them so they can have more ease and grace during their visits?
So I would say have a little care pack for yourself, like in your car, or maybe add something to your purse because maybe you're not in a car. Whether it's a water bottle, a snack of some kind, maybe you throw a toothbrush in there, maybe it's a pad of paper if you're a writer. Just have a little care pack for you. And I did a lot more reading after this ER visit to kind of see how people prepare. And if you have a loved one that has any kind of medical issues, have a little bag packed for them, have maybe an extra medical medication, maybe have wet wipes, maybe have a change of clothes or socks, shoes. If they have incontinence issues, have a spare whatever they're using, so that if you happen to be out shopping somewhere and there is that kind of a crisis, you're prepared for that. And so I think knowing like what you need to be okay, I think, and having some piece of that with you, it is really valuable. And the thing is that I thought I was prepared. Like I could run out to my car. I could do this. I didn't do any of those things in the moment. So if you can plan it ahead a little bit, I think you'll be a little more prepared for dealing with whatever comes up. And I know you asked for one tip, but here's the other thing. don't always rely on technology that they're going to be able to pull up those previous records, the medication, the fact that you have a power of attorney. Like, don't always rely on that, because they may not be able to see it. And I think that was, in our case, part of the situation is they couldn't see the medical history at all. And they had to go off of paper and what you told them. And fortunately, I was familiar enough to know some of the medications and things like that. But don't always rely on that technology. Have some sort of a backup so you can show people what is actually going on with your loved one.
Yeah, and I think that's an awesome tip. Carry their medical file with you if need be. This way here, you're not limited to what the doctors have if they can't get into their technology for that matter. So again, just want to give a shout out to everybody who is watching with us right now. Please share the show out. And if you are hopping in now, know that you are towards the end of the show, so you will definitely have to come back and watch from the very beginning. And you can do so by watching on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Twitch TV, YouTube, Facebook. There's so many other platforms. And of course, those who might be listening, I always forget to do that because we are on podcast now. So you can go to those many platforms as well. So, Tammy, as usual, I always love the conversations you and I have. I mean, they're so organic. It's never a script. It's just so much fun. The knowledge that I gain from you when we do chat. So I appreciate what you brought to the table today from your experience and how this just basically rolled over from a conversation you and I were having behind the scenes. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and being so transparent about it. With that being said, would you like a card reading based on the energy we do have going on right now?
Yes, I would, and I appreciate you letting me come and talk about my experience. We don't always think that there's going to be something positive that comes out of these things.
Yeah. Well, again, the whole key here being on the show, those watching the show, is that after all, the show is called Joanne's Healing Within, and this is about bringing more healing to the table so we have other ways to manage whatever it is we're experiencing. So on that note, since it is your birthday season, I'm going to pull a card for you to give you some insight to your fresh start, new beginnings, a new cycle, and what's in store for you. So here's your card. Such a perfect card to show up. Intuition. Intuition. Trusting your intuition. And I think, too, we can apply this into the situation we were just talking about as well in reference to bringing ease and grace. Trusting your intuition in regards to whatever your situations are. Activating your intuition. That 2-4 energy is about 6, which is about your body system. So learning to really connect with your body so you can utilize your intuition. And in any situation, when we are grounded, we're able to make better decisions. We're able to really think on a spot that we need to, because sometimes those unexpected emergency visits do show up. And when we are grounded, that's perfect. But this is your overall in reference to the energy that's coming through for you. Intuition is a big part for you this season for your birthday. And that 6 is making sure you take the time to schedule your walks in nature, as you spoke on before, water, meditation, movement, everything and anything to keep your body aligned so your intuition can work for you at its highest point. How's that for you, Tammy?
And it reminds me that that it's okay to breathe, and that even if you can't get outside, if you could look outside, at least that's an improvement. And even stretching, like if you go into the restroom, you can do some wall push-ups or stretches. Those things help me in the moment a lot of times. And I call it the little voice, but I know it's that intuition, it's that guidance. That says,
and sometimes that little voice gets really loud.
and I've learned for the most part to not ignore that. Like, go with that, or walk this way, or turn left here, or whatever it is. And even with the hospital situation, I really followed my intuition on that. And there has been some benefit of more people being a little more aware of what's going on. Obviously, I talk a lot about hoarding issues, and even in those moments when I was totally focused on another situation, people were pulling me aside and telling me their experience or their story. So even there, you don't know who's going to interact with you, and how you can have a positive impact even when you're dealing with something like that. And trust me, I was thinking about my fuzzy teeth at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was not really focused on, hey, I'm being a listening board, but I was. And
excellent. Excellent. And again, Tammy, thank you so much for all your wisdom for today. Again, let our viewers know how they can reach you.
Thank you so much for having me. And you can find me at thehoardingsolution.com.
Perfect. Perfect. So all that being said, we're going to take another commercial break, and I will be back with the conclusion of today's show. Again, Tammy, thank you so much for your wisdom today. Enjoy.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome. I'm Joanne Angel Barry Cologne, your holistic integrative teacher, licensed personal trainer, Reiki master, published author, and card creator. Let me take you down a path of direct communication with the physical body in order to become more aware and in sync with your soul. I will help you to observe and understand the language of the body as it regards to the needs of the soul. Join me on this journey of great expansion and a unique experience. I will help you integrate your mind, body, and soul as you move forward on your journey. For questions, readings, and self-growth discovery session, email healingwithin76@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome back to Joanne's Healing Within. I'm your host, Joanne Angel Barry Cologne. If you are just tuning in right now, you are literally coming in the last 30 seconds of our show. Want to remind you that if you missed a show, you can always come back and watch on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Twitch TV, and that's just to name some of them. It's also on many, many podcast platforms. Want to dive in and let you know that many of our partners have some amazing offers for you. You can check out the flyer that's up there. That's coming through. We have Spirit Messages by Joe Monkman. We also have The Badass Color Mystic by Deborah Beatty. The Author's Porch Magazine by CJ Lopez. And that magazine is coming out in January, so stay tuned. And then, of course, Intuition of the Soul by Kitty Foss. Many, many, many programs there as well. I look forward to seeing you all back here the first Thursday in January. Looking forward to seeing you then. That's January 4th. Until then, enjoy this amazing energy that we are in right now. Those celebrating, enjoy the holiday weekend. Until next time, bye-bye for now.